Time for our weekly visit with Dylan Butler at MLSsoccer.com. I just realized something.
All right.
You need your own intro music for when we do these segments. I mean, we have our standard, 1v1 intro music and everything, but is there a local band that that might dig having their music or a bit of a sting in front and behind your segment? Is there like a house band or somebody that has original stuff that won't get us in trouble with ASCAP or anything like that?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm pretty diverse in my musical tastes, so I'm not tight with like Eric Church or Luke Bryan, but we could see. I can maybe a friend of a friend, maybe Walter Zimmerman could hook me up or something. Maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Since so this way we put your own stamp and your own vibe to these things that you help us out with every single week. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to get into this week, and some of it's philosophical and some of it drives, I know, a lot of folks crazy and things like that. But let me start with what's going on in Charlotte. I'm sure that this drives the folks in Charlotte crazy, where you have now the chief operating officer now going. So that means that that Glick is gone. That and by the way, the Glick ending up in Chelsea. I thought that was really interesting. And then you have Mark Hart resigning as the company's chief operating officer. That comes after Nick Kelly leaves his post as CEO. I feel like I should ask this question. What in the wide world of sports do you think is going on in Charlotte?
Great question. Obviously, all those that you mentioned are off the field personnel, right? Front office personnel.
And then you had MAR, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe if you deduce it, like I'm a big Law and Order fan, right? So like you get into the room and you start looking at the different clues and what's the common denominator, right, of all those. And it's David Tepper, right? So maybe there's something to that. I haven't dug deep enough to see what happens with the Panthers, if they have a lot of turnover in the front office or not. But that would seem to be the thing. It's funny. I'm a big not to get too off track, but
it's a wall past Wednesday. This is what we do.
I am big Yankees fan, always have been.
No,
right? I know, and just watched the first captain, right? And Jeter is my guy. Like I go back, my first was Mattingly, and then Jeter, obviously. Following that, and I love the first episode, and it's funny, it brought me back to remembering growing up, just Steinbrenner and all the issues, and like he gets Howard Spira and trying to get after Dave Winfield and all this kind of craziness, right? That you wouldn't even think is reality, right? You think it would be like some sports soap opera kind of thing. Certainly not saying anything is like that with Tepper, but it's interesting how many front office personnel have departed in just this first year of the club. So I'd love to maybe be a fly in the wall of that boardroom, kind of to hear what these conversations are like.
Okay, since you mentioned Law and Order really quickly, since it's a wall past Wednesday, and we will go all over the place.
Yeah.
Favorite detective duo on the show?
Favorite detective duo? That's a good question. And of course now, I'm an idiot, right? Because as soon as I mention Law and Order, like, it's Marissa.
Mariska Hargitay.
Yeah, and
Chris Maloney.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like I go a little bit old school with that. I think.
Okay.
I think that's. I think D'Onofrio was really good.
Yes.
As well.
Yes, in Criminal Intent, no doubt.
Yep. But I think I kind of go old school with those two.
Okay, because I was saying I'm a fan of the original.
Okay, yeah.
And so I go all the way back to Briscoe and Logan.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
So Briscoe and Logan for me. would be my Law and Order. Although I do have Gorin and Eames definitely up there, especially the first couple of seasons on Criminal Intent. I'm down with you there. And no, you cannot beat Mariska Hargitay and Chris Maloney.
I didn't know we were going to do a power rankings of the detective.
Oh no, I'm in agreement with you. If we want to do power rankings, we can do that on a subsequent Wednesday. I'm perfectly fine with that. But no, each one of the Law and Orders has their own standard that you live up to. And I know that obviously with 20 seasons of the original, there's a lot to choose from. But no, CI at the beginning had to have Gorin and Eames as your centerpiece. And and as much as you had Jamie Sheridan as their boss and everything, you get that. But I know that Jeff Goldblum had his time later. Chris Noth had his time also in Criminal Intent. I get that. But no, I think that the OGs, the original partners, although Greavy and Logan, I understand the first season and the grittiness there. I have to go Briscoe and Logan, although I did like Phil Soretta, and I'm disappointed that Paul Sorvino thought that he was going to be typecast, and that's why he only lasted a season plus in the Soretta character. I get that, but no, we could go down the Law and Order and Castle rabbit hole. Went down the Castle rabbit hole last week, Law and Order this week. All right, so Charlotte also is, as we're talking, they're setting up a friendly with some folks from Chelsea. I don't know if you've heard about this Chelsea club, but they do have a bit of a rep. But they're importing grass basically for 12 hours.
Yep.
It's like they went to the Scott's drive-through, and it's just like, we're going to roll it out for 12 hours, then we're going to roll it back, and then I guess maybe give it to some place that really needs grass long term. Are you a fan of this, where the club coming in has this sheet of demands, and Jarrett and I talked about it on the morning show, where Mariah Carey has to have certain things, the music group has to have certain snacks and things. So do you mind Chelsea sitting there saying, well, we need grass, and then Charlotte sitting there saying, okay, well, we'll go out and buy some, actually we'll rent some grass, and then we'll get rid of it? Are you a fan of stuff like that?
I think it's the price of doing business. When you want a club of the Chelseas, of the Barcelonas of the world, right? Like, this is what they expect. And I can't tell you, as soon as you mentioned it with Charlotte, I started harking back to all the days that I was at Giant Stadium and watching that same exact process over and over, when a Barcelona or a Manchester United or the old, Champions World tours would come through with all these clubs. And it was always the same thing. It's funny because from the press box after the match, you're writing your story, you're on deadline or whatever, and you just see these like bulldozers go picking up the grass, like rolling it up, like getting it onto the truck.
Wow.
And they did. I remember back in the day, the Metro Stars, Red Bulls, like they would do a good job of donating it to clubs who didn't have a grass surface. Now, that being said, it's never very good, right? Because generally speaking, unless they've somehow improved I don't even know if you could improve technology with grass, but it's always patchy, right? So there's always, it's not perfect, right? It's going to be in squares, and it's not going to replicate what they're
used to. You hit a seam and something goes 100%. Funky and all of that.
Now, again, I would love, and I don't think it's even possible. I think, it's funny. There's so many things of big picture MLS that people want, right? And you'll hear the Pro Rel, you'll hear the European or the world's kind of calendar, right? Like all these big picture kind of ideas. For me, I always wished it would be a surface thing, right? Where everyone could play on these grass pitches. But that's also not the reality. The same reason you're not playing a calendar like you play in England is the same reason you're not going to be able to play on these grass surfaces throughout the league, right? You just can't have it. You can't do it in Seattle or in Portland or obviously in Atlanta situation, right? Where you're inside of a dome. So wish it was the case, or up in Toronto, right? Where they have like sort of that hybrid of a situation because of the weather up there. So I wish everyone was on the same surface. I wish it could be like Old Trafford or Stamford Bridge, but it's I think the reality of playing this sport in North America.
And I looked at the numbers for 4 matches. Barcelona's getting $10 million,
Mm-hmm.
and Real Madrid's getting $10 million for 3 matches. You know, the biggest match in Inter Miami history, at least one of them, and they get 6 put on them by Barca, and then you end up seeing Harvey Neville and Romeo Beckham playing at the end of the match. I guess it's just like, you know, the match is out of hand. We'll just go ahead and put our sons on out there. I thought that was and it seems like Coach Neville and Mr. Beckham, they seem to be catching some heat for that.
I mean, I've not, for me at least, like the cachet of these clubs coming in the summer is past me. I'm so happy that they changed the format of the AllStar Game. I was so tired of watching whatever club it was, you know, play against the MLS All-Stars. And then you hear all, oh, it's a real game. You know, we're really going to go out there and play. Like it's not for Barcelona. It's not for Liverpool. Like they don't care.
No.
No. And again, being in these parts that I'm in, you know, I've seen all these clubs come in, right? Like, and it's, you know, you hear about the ticket prices. Like I've seen online some of these Red Bull supporters, essentially they're paying for their season tickets by selling off the Barcelona game because people are paying these huge astronomical amounts of money to see Barcelona. And what version of Barcelona are they going to see, right? Are they going to see PK for 30 minutes or, you know, like I don't, you know, look, it's a big payday for those clubs. I guess it's a pretty good payday for MLS clubs to have them in their stadiums now. But as far as quality or expectations, you know, it's funny. I remember Barcelona played Red Bulls back in the day when Juan Carlos Osorio was the manager, and it's a post-match press conference, and it might have been like 7-2 or something crazy, right? And Osorio was asked about the match and kind of, you know, did he expect more from his club? And this is a team that I think they ended up having one of the worst seasons in their history, right? He just kind of looked at the reporter, was like, "It's Barcelona, man. Like, what do you want? Like, what are we expecting? What, you know, did you think we'd come out here and win this one, you know, nick it 1-0 or something like that?" So, look, if you're in an area like a Miami, which is a new club, a Charlotte, this is new to you, right? Relatively new to you, unless you've had these tours come through before. But to me, nothing, you know, I don't even think the Barcelona matches on TV against Red Bull. I don't even, if I'm Red Bull, honestly, I do the same. I bring out Red Bull 2 and all the guys who are secondary who haven't played, because it's meaningless for us if I'm the manager, and you know, I've got more important things on the weekend.
Okay, so let's go across town for a second, or go across the river. Sorry, that going from New Jersey to New York, that's a little different. Let's talk about NYCFC a little bit.
Yeah.
It looks like Tati is finally heading on to Girona, and he's got the one match this weekend. The farewell match. I don't know if he gets the banner and the thank you, and maybe the banner's about, you know, this. Sorry, that was an easy one. It's a 12 by 18. But when you look at Tati Castellanos' time at NYC, I know that legacies are associated with folks that, you know, spend like 37 years and they're fabric to the club and all these kinds of things. But what do you think Tati Castellanos' I guess mini legacy at NYC will be?
As the guy who steered them to the MLS Cup, right? It's got to be. I mean, it's funny because you to me, he's second only to David Villa in terms of greatest players for NYCFC, and I'd even elicit arguments of him being the greatest because of going that extra step, right? Of going to the Cup. Now Villa had the added responsibility of building a club, or being the centerpiece of building a club from nothing, right? So that was important as that first signing, as that sort of club ambassador. But and obviously all the goals that he scored, everything that he did, and set the standard. But then Castellanos took it to the next level. and obviously after a couple of early struggles, admittedly, just turned it on, and obviously became the best goal scorer last year in the league. I would argue if he stayed the whole year, he'd be the best goal scorer in the league for a second straight year, which has never happened in league history. But yeah, I mean, they've not gotten to the point, certainly, of retiring numbers at NYCFC. It's only been a short period of time, but he'd be up there. He'd be in that Legends Row, or whatever you'd want to call it, right? Like right there with Villa, for sure.
So then let me get back into Hudson River for a second, as I'm dovetailing and spiraling out of control with all of my topics this morning. Dylan Butler hanging out with us for his weekly visit from MLSsoccer.com.
Although Law and Order is also obviously based in New York, so we're all it's in the same areas.
And so is Castle.
We're
so
good. Yes, correct.
So I mean, we're right there with everything. Let's go back to Hudson River for a second. Disco came out with 3 rulings yesterday. And one was on Marcelino Moreno for Atlanta United. And Jarrett and I went for a good half hour on it on the morning show about it. And then Tati Castellanos was a part of it for hands to the face.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, what it looked like he did with Tom Barlow looked like something out of your stereotypic mafioso episode from a 1970s Kojak TV series, where literally Tati Castellanos puts his hand to Tom Barlow and just basically goes, a couple of taps.
Yeah.
And that gives him an undisclosed fine from Disco. And then Kamal Miller doesn't leave in a timely fashion. And this was the philosophical question that I kind of wanted to get in with you this morning. How do we make, and I guess this is a cause and effect, how do we make things better? And I'll leave that word in quotes. And yes, I did just use air quotes. How do we make things better or more equal across the board where Disco is concerned, where you don't have this perpetual cause and effect where pro does something or doesn't do something, or they miss something that's so egregious it should have been addressed on site in the first place, to where Disco comes in behind, does things that show an incredible amount of iniquity a lot of the time. It's like, okay, well, this is worth this, and this might be more serious if you look at it on video, but we're not going to give it the same credence as punishment. How do we make this cause and effect relationship better to where everything is looked at in a match the way that it should be, so Disco doesn't come in behind and look at things differently case by case? Am I swinging at rainbows here with this idea?
I think you need philosophical changes. So maybe you are, because if you think about it, what have we said all along ad nauseum almost about pro, right? We want more transparency. So they started that a little bit, right, with their YouTube thing and inside VAR and making statements and trying to at least make those initial steps towards some sort of transparency. They need to do more. We've said that. Disco hasn't even gotten to that ground floor yet, right? Because they are like, who are they, right? They're headless. We don't know who they are.
They are they're a star chamber. We don't know who they are.
100%, right? So what kind of transparency is there to begin with, right? When we don't know who they are, who's on the committee, what they're thinking about, what they're looking at. Like, it's, and maybe that's by design, I'd imagine, right? Like, to that cloak of secrecy, but
then you deny accountability by having a start.
Yeah, no, for sure. Exactly. So what I will say was, it was funny. I was on, not to again get off topic, but to the Tati slap. I was on I was on the match, editing it, and I was on like our Slack channel, and I mentioned it right away. I'm like, his, housery is on another level, because that's one of his moves. Like that little slap right? And you could see like Barlow was having none of it. Like he did. So he's got two moves, Tati, that are like, at least that I've noticed, right, on that level. That's one of them. That little slap where you can't get a red, right? Like it's not. And also, if you're the person receiving it, if you go down holding your face, you look a lot worse. So you can't do that. He knows. So that's one of his calling cards, and the other is a hug. So he did this to Jose Martinez a few matches back. That crazy game at the Union. And Martinez was having none of that either, right? Like he pushed him away after, but it's the hug and the little slap on the face. I love that. I don't know where he got that from, but a big fan of those for sure.
There's nothing wrong with Ishhousery. Yeah, there absolutely is nothing wrong with
it. And that's and then he goes on the other side of it and he does like I think 4 or 7 rotations of a roll, Neymar-esque. So love it. I will miss that from Tati for sure. Among other things of his goal scoring and his pressing and all that kind of good stuff that has earned him this opportunity. Very a move for NYCFC and City Football Group too. Very very reminiscent of like the Jack Harrison move they did. That kind of loan within the organization. At the hopes of he does well here, and now you could go on and sell him on for a future big transfer move.
And we've seen it in other leagues, but they've been startup leagues, like in the in the USFL and other American football leagues, where you have that immediate window into VAR, and you hear the conversation from the official down on the field up to the VAR booth, what they're seeing, all these kinds of things. I would posit that having something like that would go a long way in the decision-making process and helping folks understand it. But at the same time, you have, and this goes to your thought, that when you have these systems that are entrenched, you don't want to sit there and open windows, because then people would sit there and then they would get the chance to see behind the curtain and see what's going on. And do you really want to see how the meal is made? Do you really want to see that kind of stuff? Because you're going to be catching all sorts of hell.
It's an extremely tricky one, right? Like you want to grow the league, and that's the transparency part of it is a big thing, and what's behind decisions. And it started even at the very beginning, right? Like you would see it go to VAR and we'd all be like, what are they looking at, right? Like, and you don't have it like you do in football or hockey, where the referee has a mic on, right, and explains it to the crowd. But then we would get better communication, right, from like social media, where we'd hear immediately the check is for a handball in the box, right, or whatever it is, and that happens, pretty much right away. But yeah, this is another level of it, of needing to have that transparency for sure.
From the weekend that was, as we head into the weekend that will be, from the weekend that was, what stood out to you when it came to results on the table? You've got Inter Miami coming from behind to beat Charlotte. Chicago gives another loss to Seattle, and I think it's now 4 of 5 now for the Sounders. You didn't know which Galaxy team showed up, and it was the one that ends up losing to Colorado in Commerce City. Hudson River, hell is real, in the rivalry week, sponsored by a beer that is a green bottle and a red star. What stood out?
Can I say all the above, right? Like it was and a lot of those matches I was actually watching and on for MLS, busy weekends and midweek as well. But so a few maybe quick fire takes. Derby was great. I thought Hudson River Derby was great. I thought Red Bulls really took it to NYCFC early, as you would expect, right? They didn't score though, right? Like Lewis Morgan was getting behind. John Tolkien was getting behind. The evidence of needing that striker was never clearer, I thought, than that loss for the Red Bulls, especially when you've got Omir Fernandez as a false nine. You bring in Tom Barlow, who is to me just like a tree, and he doesn't serve any purpose to me other than just being that really big guy that you hope to serve balls into or to just occupy space and center backs. And you've got Klimala still on the bench, right? Like, so desperate for it. They've got the Tyler Adams transfer fee, additional money to use. They've got the DP spots. They've freed up international spots. So they don't have much time left on this window, right? A couple of weeks left. Yep. They've got to get a move to me if they're serious about making that next step. And then NYCFC, they survived that early punch. They grew into the game. They got better. Second half was a different story, and just the sublime service from Santi Rodriguez into Tati. Tati finishes. 50th goal, only the second player since Villa to score that many goals for NYCFC. So a great finish for them. Only a rare win at RBA for them as the visiting team. I'm going to save you the joke there. From their multiple home venues. Hell is real for me again, Cucho, right? Like, and the question to me is it too early? Like, it's funny, we've already seen it, right? Joseph 2.0, and you know Joseph in your area and the way that he started, but 4 goals in 3 matches in under 90 minutes, a sensational start, right? For Cucho Hernandez, certainly living up to all the money that was spent on that transfer fee. So that's, to me, interesting to see how he continues on. And yeah, that Miami match, it's funny because and there was such a cluster of matches, but the lightning and rain kind of helped push that back later in the night. So we're able to watch that. And yeah, Jordi Reyna, right? 2 quick goals. And you're like, oh, here we go. It's going to be like Charlotte 5-1. And then Miami just turns it on in the second half. Higuain seems to be relishing in this off the bench, right? Dust them off, and he'll score a banger, and a great win for Miami late into the evening. Phil Neville, it was funny. I don't know if you caught it, but in his post-match press conference, he's answering questions. He keeps looking at his watch, and he's getting a little bit like distracted. He's looking at his watch, and finally, he just at the very end, like, he's like, guys, I have to go to bed. I'm He was so tired, he said. So he kind of tried to cut it short quickly. So that was interesting. And then honestly, too, I thought it was really, really interesting, especially the last maybe 20 minutes of the Atlanta-Orlando match, right? Because like it was kind of a dud for a while, it felt like, right? And then it heated up. As soon as Atlanta kind of started kicking in the gear, and as soon as I think Joseph got introduced into the match, I think we saw a different Atlanta side. And Twellman was saying on the broadcast, like, thinking or expecting him to be on at halftime. He wasn't. He obviously came on more like 60th minute, but that was like the last. And the later it got, the more intense it got. That was so much fun, man. Like that was one of those where you wish there was maybe another 6 minutes of stoppage time, because that was a lot of fun as well. So I didn't see the Chicago-Seattle match, although now you hear Nico Ladero afterwards, right? Like we're saying all the time, like, they'll be all right. They'll be okay. They're Seattle. And he's like, we're not right now. We're not Seattle. We're not the same team that won the Champions League. So if I'm a Seattle supporter, I guess I'm hearing those words and being a little bit concerned. Galaxy.
Same from Derek Williams post-match in Los Angeles. It's like some of the guys aren't paying attention.
Yeah, no, Galaxy as well, right? They are they're in deep trouble, I think. You saw the concerns in that Sacramento Republic loss, and then they fall into a 3-0 hole in the Clasico, right? Yeah, no, they've got some issues, no doubt.
Then as we head into the weekend that will be, trying to see if there's anything on the board that stands out. It's kind of interesting crossovers here and there. Short of Atlanta United and LAG, what stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at clubs that need that. I think that Austin, you go to Sunday, I think those 2 matches are interesting, right? The Austin Red Bull match, I think, could be an interesting one, especially considering Red Bull's form on the road. Austin's home form generally. The LA Atlanta match is wide open. On Saturday,
it's like there's stuff, but there's nothing to.
What it is it's about like our debut is going to happen, right? Like Toronto, Charlotte. You know, will we see debuts in that match, right? Like that to me is some of the more interesting stories. I like the Cincinnati Nashville match a little bit too, just because Cincinnati, they lose to their rival. This is a big match for them, I think, to bounce back, like to kind of prove that they are a real deal, right? They are a team to be concerned about. So I think that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to Neville's comments about the pitch at Yankee Stadium. I'm sure that will be intriguing. And RSL Dallas is an interesting one for me too, as well, just because, again, RSL home, no doubt, another sellout crowd. Dallas struggling a little bit right now, right? So like they need to get a road result. And RSL want to kind of continue their form and be in that pecking order in the West. So to me, those are the games. And also LAFC, SKC, only because now does this mean additional minutes, right? When does Bale come on this time? How humid will it be in Kansas City? Because that was an issue we've clearly heard from both Chiellini and Bale. So some storylines there.
Wait till September in Texas, boys. That's all I got to say.
They're playing there too a couple times.
Got all three in Texas in September. All right, what do folks need to know? What's going on with MLSsoccer.com and you specifically?
Yeah, no, it's I think a relatively quiet week. Obviously, midweek games helps. So we go to Saturday matches for me there, and I think for OSDB Sports, we've got. We've talked about it last week a little bit, right? The MLS AllStar snubs, I think, will be my story coming up. So that's always interesting. Fans always have their minds set about that. And then, yeah, just sort of the summer of MLS, right? Like all these big time signings, and they continue, and how clubs are changing and what they look like. And that'll be in the following week. So that'll be a little bit of a deep dive into the deep pockets that some of these clubs are showing by bringing in some of these really high-level guys.
Cool. We'll be looking forward to it. Dylan, as always, thanks for hanging out with us in the midweek, and we will catch up with you soon, my friend.
All right, John. Thanks, man.